Okay, so hello everybody, and welcome back to the Exceed Your Expectations podcast with me, Lisa Cobble, and hosted by Exceed Coaching. I'd like to introduce the second one in the series related to the How to Love Your Job workbook. And today we're going to be talking with Stephen Alexander all about how to love your job and what makes your job great. And so, Stephen, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit, please?
Hi everyone, and hi Lisa. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. I feel like we're in like this little interview booth. It's awfully good, isn't it? So yes, my name's Stephen Alexander. I am a radio owner and host. It still sounds quite bizarre now. I'm also a support worker, and I'm also an emotional and mental health coach. It's quite a mouthful, but those are my three main jobs. And of course, being a parent, but let's just stick with those for the moment.
Wow, you sound really busy. So how do you manage to juggle all of those jobs and activities?
Do you know what? I think number one, I think it's part of being a parent, isn't it? I think it's something that you just end up doing, whether you like it or not. So you just end up doing it anyway. But I think because they're so individual, I think that kind of like helps as well. And they're so different as well and so unique. It helps it because they all have their own like level of energy, their own level of expectation, if you like. And so that for me kind of really helps me. And also, I think it's important to say, not that it's anything in particular, but I'm also autistic as well. So I have like this huge amount of energy anyway. And so again, it helps to decompartmentalize the different things as well. So, it's almost like putting on your little hats, if you like, or your little work heads. Do you know what I mean? And it's like,
yeah,
okay,
perfect.
So that's how I cope with it. Yeah.
And that's exactly like the old adage, isn't it? A change is as good as a rest. So if you can break up with different things, I say that a lot to my audience, if you like, that it's great to have routines and compartmentalize your day. So at least you're serving everybody and everything in each day, which is fab. So Stephen, I'd like to know a little bit more about how you got into your care job and what you love about your job there.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because at a young age of 18 years old now back in my day, we had something called work experience, and one of my work experience was going into a nursing home full of elderly people. Now I was a young man. The only reason I went is because it was full of young ladies, so I thought this is going to be a great idea. But the actual work involved, I was like, no way, Jose. But many years later, I've got a sister who's mentally disabled. I've forgotten what the word is now, but Down syndrome. So she's got Down syndrome. And so I've always kind of had this kind of caring type nature about me anyway. And so what it was I was working for a local church doing like community work, but that job finished, and my wife and I at the time said, well, what should we do now? And it was our dream to go move to the seaside. So we said, right, let's go and do it. So we looked at each other and we kind of literally sold everything that we got, whatever we could, put it into storage, moved into like this caravan. It was like, okay, this is it. We're going to try it. And we'll give ourselves like a 6-month break. But of course, here at the seaside, for those who don't know it, jobs are so like seasonal. It's unbelievable. So you're either working in an arcade or you're working in the care industry, apparently. So I went fresh-faced to an area I didn't know, people I didn't know. Now, you know what it's like in the job scene. It's about who you know, what you know. So I went to this organization called MainCap, who, they work specifically with adults with learning disability. So, and I just kind of got chatting to them. And for them, it's more about whether your character fits, because you can't really teach people to care. Do you know what I mean? Or you can't really teach people charity. They've either got it or they haven't. It's as simple as that. So I know nothing about care. I didn't know what I was letting myself into, but I was like, well, do you know what? Let's give this a go. And so I've been quitting since I got there, and I've been there 6 years now. So there must be something about it I liked.
Yeah, there must be. So if you think about a typical day for you, what kind of things, like in my workbook, we talk about the love tasks, that can do tasks, but they're a bit okay-ish, and then the ones that you hate. How do you balance your day out with the bits that you love that keep you there for this 6 years that you haven't quit?
Do you know what? I think it's about without sounding weird, it's about recognizing our skill set and about what works for us and what doesn't work for us. So for me, I mentioned that I was autistic. Now, I've only just realized I thought I was special. I thought I was different because everybody says you are, you know what I mean? I was one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I'm very noise sensitive. So when there's a lot of people around me, I don't really like it because I can't really focus in. I can't really listen in. And I'm also easily distracted. So working during the day wasn't great for me. Just didn't really work. And so when I got offered a job working at nighttime, it was great because it's just like a pin drop. You go in and the silence is just magical. So number one is the silence for me.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I'm a lot better working one-to-one. It's not that I don't work in teams. I'm very good at working in teams, but I prefer to give people that one-to-one care. And during the day, it's a very, very busy environment. So the residents may not get I'm not saying that I've got to be careful what I say here because it sounds like they're neglected. They're not at all. But it's a very, very busy environment, as you can imagine. So working one-to-one means I do actually get that time with them. They're not always asleep, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I usually wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. They're awake at 3 o'clock in the morning. Do you know what I mean? So It means I get to chat with them and actually give them quality time. And we have one of our residents, and she never, ever, whenever she knows I'm on shift, she never, ever goes to bed. She'll always stop up deliberately because she knows that I'm on. And it's kind of like moments like that I really, really cherish. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think it's things like that. And also, I think with the coaching side of me, the staff that come in have all sorts of issues, problems, family, finances. It's a very low paid job, very stressful. So again, I can come in with that kind of coaching element side of me and saying, look, I can help you with this. Of course, I don't charge or anything. It's all part of just me. And also, this is the bit I'd like. I don't really share this with anybody, but I'm also the only male there in an all-female environment. So it's a hard job, but someone's got to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm quite the opposite in my job, or I was when I was an apprentice, an engineering apprentice. So I know how it feels to be like one of few or one of not many. So how does it feel from a man's perspective to be around with so many women?
Do you know what? Actually, it doesn't feel like a divide. You think it might, but it actually doesn't. And it's been the story of my life. So I've been to an all-girls school for like sixth form and stuff. I grew up with 5 sisters. So that kind of environment has never actually fazed me. And I've always got on better with females anyway. And so I think I'm much better with the female psyche. So in that regards, it's great. The downside of that is that some of the younger girls, when they chat about their, how do I put this politely, escapades,
yes,
I don't really want to know about that. Thank you. Do you know what I mean? Now, if I was talking about that, it'd be seen as, oh my gosh, did you really say that? That's so inappropriate. But for them to do it, it's like, oh, well, that's okay. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And like the other day, for example, I went in and they went, oh, you've put on a bit of weight, haven't you? And they started like rubbing my stomach. Right. Yes. Now, you can imagine as a man, if I'd have done that to a woman.
Yeah. And equal opportunities, you're quite right to be able to point out that you're not comfortable with that as well. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's such a comfortable fit. It doesn't really faze me, to be honest. And I love the attention, if I'm brutally honest. So it's all good.
Wouldn't we all, right? I know exactly how that feels. And in fact, I think where you said you don't even notice the difference, I was the same. I was none the wiser. I just carried on and did what I was doing, except when I couldn't find toilets for things because they were miles away, because girls didn't work in factories and when they were built and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked a little bit there about your coaching. Tell me a bit more about how you got into that and what you were doing with that.
Do you know what? I wish you hadn't have asked me that question now, really. Okay, so I'm going to take you back 4 years ago. My marriage fell apart and my relationship fell apart. And there's a guy called Tony Robbins. Everyone's familiar with Tony Robbins, right?
Oh, yeah.
And one of his most famous phrases is, he said, the worst day of your life will be your best. And you can imagine how messed up that is, right? And so this was the worst day of my life. I literally lost everything. I left with like a carrier bag and I ended up homeless for a while. But I was suddenly in this place where I'd lost literally everything. My identity was gone as a husband, as a partner, as a father even. So, there's that time when I I wasn't close to my kids, for example. And then I ended up in like this little bed sit. So it was like this period of shame. Suddenly I was put into like this financial position where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to like financially support myself now. And so it was a period where I had to sort myself out mentally, massively, financially. And so I started embarking on this mental health journey, emotional health journey, and financial journey. And through that, I started going down the whole personal development route. Now, once you start to go into that, you start to get sucked in, really.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did. I started to learn a little bit more about it. I started to train in it. And I found that actually I had quite a good gift in this. And it's just been a whirlwind ever since. Now I've got like a sea view apartment. It sounds posher than it actually is. But, so all the things... Oh, can I just say, one of the things I noticed on your website, you were talking about manifesting, wasn't you?
Yes.
Right. There's some stuff on there.
Yeah.
And so here was I in my little bed sit, and I'd come across this law of attraction stuff, and I was kind of quite eager about it. And I thought, I'm going to try this. And so I imagined this little sea view apartment, 2 bedrooms are just enough for me and my girls. I imagined the views I was going to have, the gardens, etc., etc. And so when this place came up, I was like, and it literally was everything I'd written down on my little piece of paper. Absolutely incredible.
Awesome.
And I'm earning more money than I was. I'm no longer in debt. My relationships have been the best ever. I've traveled, I won't say the world, but I've traveled to other parts of the world almost like free of charge and stuff. It's just phenomenal.
It sounds
that's
amazing.
how I am where I am now.
Yeah. And I know you said you wish I hadn't asked that question, but actually it just goes to show the experience and the things you've been through that you can actually then help other people with. And
100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Definitely.
So what you probably now love about that job is the fact that you've been there, you've done that, you've got the t-shirt, and you can speak from experience. The amount of people you see that are trying to coach and support people who haven't done that, it's difficult. You and I as coaches can see that and feel how hard that is. So amazing.
Do you know what? I'm glad that you said that, because that is so true, because that is one of the major feedbacks I ask, because I'm always amazed. I've got people who just want to give me money, they want to give me holidays, and I'm like, I don't get it. Why would you do that? And it's because we've done something magical for them. We just see it as normal, as natural. We're just a human being helping another human being, but they're so blown away by it. And the feedback I get is, it's because you've been there. When you cry, we know you're crying because that's so raw. And there's something special about being raw with another human being. Absolutely beautiful. And about sharing life with another human being. Absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I totally 100% agree with you. I think there's something special about having lived that, experienced that, and saying, look, we have choices, we have options. There are people who actually support us. Not everybody is the same. And going into those conversations with those, saying, look, we have all of this that a lot of people don't realize that we have.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's when you're saying about you coach people at work, you're probably like me, you just naturally fall into wanting to help people and coach people. And I think if you are like me, then you'll see an opportunity nearly in every day where you can do that. And that's certainly something that I love. I love to help people in whatever way I can. And I'm hearing a lot of that in what you're talking about too.
I think I have to, again, I have to add this. I realized I had a superhero complex. Now, obviously, it's a term that we're very familiar with, and it's very familiar in the coaching circle, isn't it? So I had to do a lot of inner work saying, Steve, what on earth is that about? And so for me, it came back to that wanting to be loved, wanting to be valued, wanting to offer something, and wanting to be that hero that I needed when I was going through these chaotic times. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think sometimes it's something we need to be aware of, because we kind of do it. And so I had this realization the one day that I was like, Steve, you don't need to be a superhero. You don't need to be a hero. I was like, what do you mean I don't need to be? And that for me was just absolutely amazing, because it meant from going from I need to help everybody to actually, no, right? They need to bloody well help themselves. Excuse my French, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, by wrapping them up in cotton wool, we're not doing them any favors. By helping them all the time because we can is not doing them any favors.
Correct.
And so I had to step back and go, okay, I can learn to help in a different way. I'm not saying I'm not helping. I'm just going to help you differently.
Yes. And so I have a saying, actually, that everybody deserves to feel like a superhero. And what I mean by that is they can feel happy and secure and confident, to take on life and deal with everything that it throws at them. So I'm hearing in this a similar way to you, that you can't be the superhero for everybody. I can't be for everybody, but we can teach other people and help other people to see how smaller elements in their day can build up to that feeling, and that build up that momentum of being a superhero themselves, for themselves.
Totally. Oh yes, totally. And I think it's a massive shift, isn't it? Because we go from being somebody's superhero to actually empowering them to be their own superhero.
Exactly.
It's kind of like the old phrase, isn't it? Was it something like, is it give the man a fish and he can feed his family for a day, give him a net, and it's very old now, isn't it? But it's that kind of stuff though, isn't it?
Exactly true. And that's what I love about my coaching job as well. So just before we wrap up, Steve, I'd like you to tell me all of that, a little bit more about your radio station and all about what you're doing with that.
Yeah, do you know what? There's big smiles every time I talk about that, because for me, it's just bizarre. So I saw an advert, as you do on Facebook, saying who wants to be a volunteer radio presenter. Now, as a kid, radio was always on, you know what I mean? As we were growing up, radio was always on. So I grew up with radio, and I always wanted to be on radio. I really did as a kid. And so I saw this advert and I was like, I'm going to do it. I've got zero experience, not a clue what I'm doing. I'm going to do it. So of course I applied, and the guy said yes. And so, how some people buy houses, right? This guy basically sets up little radio stations and then sells them on. So I worked on a couple of radio stations with this one guy. And then the one day he said to me, he said, you know what, I've had enough. And he was just having a tough time. And he says, right, I'm going to get rid of this radio station. I was like, no, keep it. I'll take it on. And he was like, yeah, right, whatever. So he literally gave me all the branding stuff, and I literally took it on. So yeah, here am I now with basically my own radio station. And at the moment, there's just me presenting, and I do what I can. At some point, I will recruit other people, but yeah, this radio station is on 24 hours a day. I run 2 shows that I'm on. And it's really, really making a difference to people, because while they're in hospital and stuff like that, I deal with a lot of sick people. They're listening to it while they're getting their leukemia, whatever it is, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing knowing that that's happening.
That you're reaching people.
Yeah. And recently, this one girl said to me, she says, I'm so grateful for what you've done for me. I was like, I haven't done nothing. She says, well, yeah, but you've always doing that stuff on the radio for me, and I'm always listening, and I'm so grateful. She said, I'd like to know if you'll come on a 90s weekend with me. I was like, what? She said, yeah. She said, I know I didn't ask you, but I've kind of booked you onto this 90s weekend. And I love 90s weekend music, do you know what I mean? So yeah, next weekend I'm off to a 90s weekend. I'm like, come on, do you know what I mean?
Brilliant.
But yeah, so it's things like that just happen to me. And again, just by doing something that we love to do. And just saying, I'm going to do for it. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, but I'm going to go for it,
But that's the joy of new things, isn't it? Sometimes they're a bit scary.
About that. I don't know if it's a joy, but I'm like, I'm going to give it a try anyway.
That's your superhero inside, isn't it? Right? You've overcome so much. You're quite confident in your core skills. You've talked about that with your day job as well. And I think that harks back to a lot of people's enjoyment in their job. If you're using your own skills, you're doing what you love, or there's a lot of flavor of it, you can put up with anything else that comes at you, right? And it gives you that confidence to go for a lot more too.
I think it does. I hadn't actually thought about that. That's a bit of coaching there, wasn't it? But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think once you've had that experience of overcoming, you are less and less fazed by new things, and this whole stepping out your comfort zone. You're like, what comfort zone. What I'm constantly in an uncomfortable zone, so bring it on. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. So I'm seeing that in everything you're doing. You know, you've gone from strength to strength to strength since that worst day of your life, right?
Yeah, totally.
How awesome. I'm really, really pleased we had this conversation, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure for me to talk to you. And of course, I will be sharing all the links, etc., to your websites and your Thrive Radio so that people can pick up and listen. So I'm really, really pleased to have spent this time with you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that if people do have like a special song request, or they want to shout out, or they want to promote their business or anything like that, just do get in touch with me. And like you said, you're going to put the details up. So yeah, because our station is just literally about serving the people. And also it does me a favor if somebody else can put some music my way. I'm like, do you know what it means? I don't have to think about it, so that's fine. So yeah, if they want to shout out music, whatever, then let me know.
Wonderful. I'm sure they'll be right in touch with you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. So that's it for today, folks. Thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to delivering another exciting conversation to you very soon.